Okay, well, let's look at what do you feel is the strongest argument supporting the existence of God? Well, strong for whom? That's an important question. If somebody's coming to me broken-hearted because they've just lost a relative through illness, there's no point in saying, my dear, just look at the fine-tuning of nature. I mean that seriously. I was asked by an atheist professor of philosophy at Oxford to address his students, who he told me were all atheists like him. And he said, we're going to grill you, but I hope you're going to use your strongest argument. Well, I said, if you know what my strongest argument is going to be, you'd better give it to me. So he said, if I'm ever to become a Christian, the argument that would convince me most is fine-tuning. It's strong for some people. Other people don't care sixpence about it. They're not interested in it. They don't understand its power and its force, which is great. People need all kinds of different arguments. Some need an intellectual argument because they're bothered. There's something they don't understand, and they need facts. For example, somebody's bothered about the existence of Jesus. That's very simply dealt with. All you have to do is read a bit of ancient history. Other people are bothered because they are immersed in various aspects of the problem of evil and pain. And you don't deal with that by discussing Genesis 1. Now, I mean that quite seriously. One of the questions here, which I might as well deal with as we're going through, is what's the hardest argument you face? Well, the answer to that's obvious. It's the problem of evil and pain. That is the hardest question any of us face. And we need to think about it. Because if we've nothing to say about it, we're as bad as the atheists. They have, by definition, nothing to say. Because atheism is a hopeless philosophy. By definition, there is no ultimate hope. And that's why the Bible talks about it. At the heart of our Christianity is not a set of physical laws, there's a cross. And that is answering a big question. It's telling us at the very least that God didn't remain distant from the problem of suffering, but himself has become part of it. That's a very different kind of answer than arguments from nature or the philosophy of science. So there are all kinds of things. It depends who's asking the question. And we need to be sensitive. You see, sometimes, very often I find, you don't answer the question, you answer the questioner. You try to find out where they're coming from, where they're hurting, what the problem is. I never forget first learning this at Cambridge. In college at dinner, they used to provoke me, of course, because they liked mocking my Irish Christianity. And one night, a chap, but he was a very big chap as far as I remember, and a Christian had asked me to explain why I believed in the resurrection. I was trying to keep my voice down, but of course, the lower I put my voice, the quieter the table became. And suddenly a student thumped the table, all the spoons and forks jumped, and he said, that's the most preposterous nonsense I've ever heard. How can you believe that rubbish? So I turned around and said, well, I said, you feel really strongly about this. He said, I do. I said, tell me, what did you make of Paul's evidence when you read it? He said, what? I said, well, I presume you feel strongly because you've got an evidence base. Well, did Paul talk about it? I said, come round for coffee. So half an hour later, he said to me, do you know, my parents shoved this stuff down my throat. And I don't want it. And I said, that's the first honest thing you've said to me tonight. Half an hour later, became a Christian. And he has served the Lord for the last 50 years. You see, I got to the real issue. His anger was an outburst against his parents. It had nothing to do with intellectual arguments. So I'm trying to help you see that this question has no single argument.